Greetings, blessings. My name is Danny Jones. I'm an EntreMusician, and so are you. Today we have another one. We have with us Ralph Miguel, who's with the band 100 Meter Scream from Miami, Florida. Ralph, how are you?
Hello, Danny. How you been?
Good. It's always good to see you and talk. Ralph and I have been friends for a number of years now and worked together recently. And I thought he would be a great guy to have on to do an interview with. He comes from a little different part of the world than I grew up in, and with a little different heritage. And I just thought it would be interesting to share with everybody. So, Ralph, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Miami, Florida, as you all know, which is definitely I think it's different from any other part of the country. It's pretty unique. We're just down here on the peninsula, especially South Florida. We're right on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. We're I think right below the freeze line. I think the freeze line is right at West Palm or Palm Beach. And we got people from all around national. So a lot of pros. There are other cons, but I can't say it's been dull growing up in Miami or in South Florida. Definitely a interesting place to grow up in. I was born down here actually, so it's definitely an interesting place, fun place.
Okay, so you're a singer, a songwriter, and
Yes.
a guitar player.
Yes.
How did all this come to be?
Wow, Danny. That's like everyone else. They have their elongated story, but I'll try to, kind of just shrink it a bit for time's sake. Well, I believe at age I was 3 years old, and first vivid memory of a song. I believe my mom was home. She was carrying me or something, and I forgot where we were. And I had heard on the background Penny Lane come on the radio, and from the Beatles. And it's just a kid, that song. It just, I guess, with the horns, it was the French horn, just caught my attention as a toddler, basically. And I just remember my memory is kind of blurry on that, but I still remember just at that moment, and I heard that, and I was like, wow, that's interesting as a small child. And then as I was growing up, my father, he had a very vast collection of vinyl and records, and so we'd listen to on the radio. But for example, just the classic rock bands like Mountain. This was Leslie West, Vanilla Fudge, of course, all the Beatle albums. There was Zeppelin. I think there was some Pink Floyd. It just, he covered the gamut with that. He also had a classical musical section that, like Beethoven, Bach, with the Baroque. I think he liked the Baroque era, if I recall. But yeah, Mozart, it was, he had that side. It's like music, it depends what mood you're in.
So were either of your parents musicians?
No. My dad, no, he was a writer. He had phenomenal skills with that.
Yeah, what kind of writer?
Huh? He could write novels, essays. I remember he would help my aunt, his youngest sister. His youngest sister would come in, and he would end up technically writing her papers, I guess.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I know. But not technically, he would. But I just remember he would be typing, and he would be telling her, "Hey,
Okay, so let me throw this in. Then you, as a songwriter, lyrically, you sort of came by this honestly, so to speak.
I think maybe it's. I've been able to home in those skills maybe in the lyrical side of things. I can't really. I can write fairly well. I can still write in longhand, cursive, which a lot of people don't do anymore. But yeah, if I were to sit down and write out a novel or story, I don't know how proficient I would be at that. I never attempted that. But I think that gene might have skipped me and it went to my daughter. I have a daughter that apparently inherited her granddad's skill in that. But I think in terms of for lyrics, I think my old man kind of might have helped in that department. But yeah, he was a unique guy. So he was a big influence. Yeah, just with just the different, interests that he had. And yeah, my mom, my mom was, something else. My mom was, my mom could sing. I remember that she would sing in the choir, but she never did anything formal with that. And I think I might have, well, just so people know the background, my parents immigrated here from Cuba. I believe both of them in 1959. So they came at a very young age. So they assimilated really quickly and Americanized it. I think I might have in some prior conversation I had with you. And Cuba, rock was big. Problem is, after I guess what I call the revolution, you weren't allowed to listen to any of that. You couldn't be caught with any, Lord forbid, like a record or anything that would be a big no and cause a lot of problems. But still, of course, salsa, merengue, and all that other stuff, and they also have the different forms of music over there. From what I recall, they have something called it's like you have your country music over here. They got their version of country music. I think they call it Wajito, which is like country folk, and usually with the over there you had your subgenres that were very different from like the salsa, merengue, and of course the Spanish music, flamenco. Oh, that was really a big influence, from Spain, and also I guess that's why Cuba. There, I guess a lot of artists in that particular in Latin music, a lot of artists came out of there. But I wasn't influenced by any of that. I was influenced right off the bat from just good old fashioned rock and roll, American and English, or and like. My father got me started with, like, of course, the Beatles and all the other bands I had mentioned, but I have two aunts, one of them that's 10 years older than me, and the other one's about 11 or 12. So they were like older sisters, and they got me into their whole kind of music that we're listening to at the time. I guess like the new wave bands like Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, and I ended up loving that because I love bands like Devo, Wall of Voodoo, XTC. I can just name off a whole plethora of bands. And of course, as I was growing up through my formidable years, teenage, and I had my speed metal and, just all the different phases. And so make a long story short, I'm very fortunate that I've had a great foundation of so many different influences, and I'm not pigeonholed by one particular genre of music. Because I have some friends since high school, and they're just in one particular genre. They just love AC/DC, Celtic Frost, Venom, and that's all they listen to, and nothing wrong. I like those bands, but it's just not my, you want to, in my opinion, expand, your palette and everything else. And luckily, yeah, I hopefully it's reflective in my songwriting and lyrics. And that's how I guess maybe I got recognized some years, I guess after college, when I came back. And
what did you major in college?
History.
Okay.
So yeah, that was interesting experience. I didn't get to graduate from the university, but I came back down to Miami and basically finished up over here. But I've always, I guess I mentioned my father being kind of having the writing skills. So I'm not gonna say I was very literate, but I've always been a reader, even at a young age, and even now. So constantly coming across information. I just think it's something, and I'm just a curious guy, and I'm just always curious to learn new things, come across things.
I think probably the most successful songwriters that I've known were all big readers. They
Yeah.
read a lot, and of course, a lot of people that again became writers, and I'm speaking of songwriters,
Yes. Yes.
not from the lyric side of it. They studied. They were like English majors or English lit.
Yeah.
Again, it has to go with that.
And,
So,
and that's, yeah, and that's why I mentioned that my dad probably should have gone into that field. He should have become an English professor. And my best friend, Mark, who I'll talk about in a second, who was in the band that we eventually got signed in, we're dear friends and best friends to this day. He was a writer too. I met him a little after he came down from New Jersey through a mutual friend. And him and my dad were best friends. I mean, they just talk about, God, man, from Chaucer to the Romantics, Lord Byron and all that. And it's always interesting, So, and my buddy Mark, I remember he got a job writing for the Weekly World News. I don't know if you guys remember going to like supermarkets, maybe depending where part of the country, Kroger's, out in LA, Ralph's, here in Florida's Publix. And you walk in, and when you're waiting, you'll see like I think it was the Weekly World News. And you would see like, aliens meet Bill Clinton or George Bush, or he wrote one that the Easter Island heads on Easter Island end up growing beards overnight. He wrote that one. So it was a lot of fun, but he, genius musician, lyricist, phenomenal guitarist. I'm talking, and again, we're dear friends to this day. And then my brother ended up also joining the band. My brother Danny, and he was an outstanding drummer. Not much formal training, but just from ear and just, I guess, that innate talent. And he was influenced by some of the greats. I mean, starting with Stuart Copeland from the Police and so forth. And it was reflective in our music at the time. And so I was very fortunate.
When did this band start? I mean, you said you came back after college.
Yeah. I was like, I wasn't in too many bands. I was, and I think in my whole life, I'm trying to think of it's always been with either friends or people I know, or I met through a friend. I never really went through the ads or anything. I didn't have to, which I'm pretty lucky, but, I think this might have been my third attempt to being in a band. Again, the first band had some friends, and then second, it's somebody else I knew. And then the third, I met Mark through a mutual friend. And it was just, God, the majority of the same influences musically. Not to mention, he had that kind of like that English background, English lit. And I can kind of relate to it to some degree. And like I mentioned, me and my dad were very close with that. And yeah, we just had a lot of chemistry. It's just chemistry. I mean, in the band, if you have chemistry, that's so important. And with my brother, and look, I was the least talented. I was the least proficient in the band at the instrument. I mean, I was a decent rhythm guitarist, but between Mark and my brother on the drums, I was very lucky. And then we had another friend that came into the band. We were introduced through a mutual friend, Vince, who was the bass player, who was an excellent bass player. And that's how we became, I would say pretty good.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, because I do know you, I know that you ended up with a production deal.
Yes.
And so what did it come about?
Okay, so we had a friend who was a masseur, which is a masseuse, but the actual name if you're a male, it's a masseur. Female's masseuse. A lot of people get that wrong. But he had a client by the name of Steve Roitstein. Now, Steve Roitstein was a pretty predominant producer down here in Miami, South Florida, in the Latin music world. Steve was originally from Connecticut, but I think he had come down to Miami, I think as a child. We talked about that, and he graduated of University of Miami School of Music, Jazz, which is, they've had some very famous musicians graduate out of there. He's very talented. And he at the time I think he had produced, I'm trying to think of these Latin artists. They're huge down here in Latin America, across Latin America, but I think Celia Cruz, Willie Chirino, and I believe he had worked with some other acts, English acts, I can't recall right now. But so to make a long story short, he had asked our buddy, hey, do you know of any bands that have some talent? And I'm looking maybe to do a rock band. And he said, oh, as a matter of fact, I do. And then he put us in contact. We sent him a demo. A little after that, we did like a kind of like he came to see us, it was like a private performance. He wanted to hear what we had, the catalog. I remember he sat down on the sofa and he just, did he have a tape? And he just says, just do your thing, guys. Just go through your, I remember on the tape, he said, okay, song run, suspend animation, song 2, like we had a catalog, I just recall that. And I think it was the next day he had signed us. So, and then from there on out, we worked with him for about a year, just developing. We learned a lot from him. I mean, I'm a way better singer thanks to him. He really helped refine my vocals.
Yeah, would you say
singing, also songwriting, a lot of different little techniques about songwriting.
When he was working with you, was this in rehearsals? Was this in the studio or combination?
It would be, yeah. He had a really nice. Well, he has a really nice home here in Miami, next to the water with the pool. He has a studio in there, so we would go over to his home. It was kind of like we were all close, Luckily, I gotta say, I've had a good experience for the most part with being bands and producers. We at the end we'll. Either if we weren't friends, we became friends. My friends became friends with other people that I had met. We're all close. We'd go to his house, and it was just easy. It's really nice house, really nice studio, and we would just refine our skills there. And that's what we did. We learned a lot from him. We all did. I mean, even Mark, even though Mark was already a very capable musician and songwriter, and my brother's drummer, but yeah.
So, did what came out of all of this?
Well, what came out of it is I think we wrote some pretty good songs, and he knew this other producer by the name of James Wisner, who James Wisner worked a lot with Atlantic Records, and he had worked with bands. He was the producer for like Paramore, Dashboard Confessionals. I believe they're from South Florida. 36 Crazy Fist, which they're from Alaska. And I remember the singer for the band, I believe he was Brock. Him and I were both taking vocal lessons from Wisner's mother, Norma Wisner, who I believe she was a fairly well-known singer back in the 50s, I believe. I think in the jazz kind of genre. But I learned a lot from her. She was a great vocal teacher, sweet lady. And so what we did, we went in, I believe, and we recut some of the songs with them. We redid some of the guitars, vocals, and again, and Steve was, he wanted the best from us, and even though, and Steve's, I guess as a producer, had worked a lot with the Latin acts, so I guess that's why he asked Wisner to come in to kind of, I guess, or anything he might have missed, and he just between him and Steve, you've heard some of the songs. I think to this day it holds up really well. I mean, it did garner attention. I mean, we were being played on the radio locally here. There was 94.Zeta. It was one particular DJ. What was his name? I think it was Razor. That was his calling card. but he loved us. WVUM, University of Miami. We ended up having a pretty big performance at the station.
I was just going to ask, if you're getting that much airplay, how did that affect your gigging status?
Well, back then, yeah, I mean, we were getting, pretty notable gigs. I think we had opened up for some pretty some.
So how long did that band last?
Wow, I'm trying to think of that. I think, God, well, Vince was the first to go. He had an incident. You know how musicians are. They tend to want to be a little experimental, and they want to, they have their I guess sometimes their vices. It's hard to control. And Vince had our bass player, great bass player, a really nice guy, but he had he had broken into a vet clinic, and I think
we probably don't need to go any further.
yeah. That's all I can say with that. But but luckily he survived. He's just looking for certain things, and I mean, hey, you want to hear rock and roll? I'll give you some rock and roll backstories. I'm sure there's a number of stories, not only from us but from many others. And then I had to take up some bass duties, so I started playing the bass. It's hard to find people that you click with, and again, chemistry.
Yeah. So
we were pretty formidable as a three-piece, and being a rhythm guitar player, you can still play bass fairly decent, or I could, and we just continued on. I think we had another bass player that came for a bit, but it kind of started fizzling because the music business it's a tough business. We had a song that nearly made it on a Range Rover commercial back then, but for one reason or another, it didn't fall through. It almost did, and that was just a really big blow to the band. Some of us didn't, handle it better than others, and
bands. I mean, I'm a survivor of bands myself.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
You either become like family or you break up.
That's it.
I'm not really sure that there's anything, in between, unless there's just a whole lot of money that keeps people together. But let's move forward.
Money. Look at the issues that some of these acts have. I mean, just look at what happened with Jane's Addiction not too long ago. I mean, it's crazy. But I did see an interview with Noel Gallagher from Oasis, and I gotta say, Oasis is a good band. I mean, that wasn't really that big of a fan, but everybody should see that interview with Noel Gallagher. He kind of explains how artists that have actually garnered success and pretty big success shouldn't be whining about their success or whining about taking a long flight to somewhere, because he was basically explaining how they're living the dream that a lot of others would love to be living or would have loved to have done, especially the younger kids and everybody playing local bars and clubs and not getting paid. And I saw that just not too long ago. I mean, if anybody can find the Noel Gallagher talking, I mean, that he, I gotta salute him or give him props. He explained it pretty well. That guy's pretty well grounded. I was impressed by his explanation, but yeah, it's that's it. And then throughout the years, it's always been an on and off. We've always tried to put something together. Music's always in your blood. You love creating. You got a riff. You record the riff. You hope to get back to it, and like I'm sure all of us, we have a bunch of ideas that you'll never get to. Some of you do. It's like cassettes full of ideas and incomplete songs, just like our phones nowadays. And so I basically, I guess I'm trying to think how many. I started playing with another friend of mine who actually I was in the first band I ever joined. High school buddy of mine, about 10 years ago or 12 years ago. There was he started this band and he wanted me to be the lead singer in it and play the bass. And it was a band called I think the Crude Brood, and it was basically just kind of like just punk, straight rock, very energetic. It was fun for the time, but I had come across by this manager by the name of John Tovar. He was introduced to us by another mutual friend, and I believe John had heard about me from some years back, being in the band I was with my buddy Mark and my brother Danny, Vince, and he I remember he told me he had a deep voice of, "Weren't you in that band back?" And he knew Steve, he knew Roitstein, and then he says, "What are you doing now?" I said, "Well, I'm playing with a band called the Crude Brood." Oh, I think I heard of them. Oh, a big fan because we're kind of like just it's a dirty punk kind of band. It was a lot of fun, especially our live shows. But so he wanted to hear my older material, like with what we did with Steve and with James Wisner. And when he heard that, I'll never forget. He called me. He says, he would go, "Ralph." I said, "Hey, John, how you doing?" "Ralph, are you," I'm not going to say the word, "are you effing stupid? What is wrong with you?" I thought I did something. I said, "Well, so what happened?" He says, "This material that you had from some years back, that is, what do you think with the Brood and this and that?" I said, "Well, it's fun. It's a buddy of mine." And, and to make a long story short, from that point, I tried to put back the original band, my buddy Mark, and my brother, but it was, everybody moves on, everybody has their lives. My brother had gone into the, I guess you want to call it the bourgeois merchant class. He had his career and all that. So it really wasn't possible for him to come back. And my buddy Mark, which I think I might have mentioned, he was a writer also, right. And he, even though he had more flexibility, but married, he ended up having a son with his wife, a little more at an older age, which he was very surprised. But yeah, things became a little more complicated. He would come and we would still try to write, and did a few gigs, but it just wasn't. So I was again very fortunate that through a mutual friend I had met my current drummer by the name of James Kelly, and him and I hit it right off. Technically a great drummer, just a good guy, character guy, and yeah, we and then at least I had the foundation with the drums right there. And we were trying to work with Mark, and I was, of course, playing bass at the time. It was just hard to find a bass player. And yeah, we just realized that it just wasn't going to work with Mark to try to play live. So we tried to recruit either someone else to play the bass and I can play the guitar, vice versa. And that's where I ended up meeting another friend. That's a friend now, through another mutual friend, Sean, who actually hails from Seattle. And he was living like a block away from me. So I met him through a neighbor of ours. He was living with her. And again, we started as a 3-piece on the guitar, but make a long story short, I had to switch him. I had to go to guitar, put him on bass. He's pretty good on the bass. He's not a bad guitarist. And we started making some waves, and unfortunately, we were starting to get some pretty good gigs with Tovar. But unfortunately, Tovar last May had passed away. So yeah. But I forgot to mention one important point. Also met someone else that was from another friend, and we call her the Doc. Doc Jill, she's actually a medical doctor. She was a ER doctor for about 10 years. But she's not really doing, I guess she's working in the ER anymore. She's got like a wellness company, but she's like, I guess she's our business partner, I guess management. She's if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be doing this now. She had come across our catalog and she had said, wow, this is pretty good stuff. What have you done with this? I said, I don't know, nothing. I mean, and she's like, well, this is good stuff. This should be out there. I'm like, well, if you have any ideas. So again, it's like, I can't bore you guys with so many details, but long story short, I guess having that training as a medical doctor, as a physician, she utilizes, her left hemisphere and right hemisphere really well. So she can just kind of home in on what she needs. So what she learned in the music business, what she learned about it in about a year, it's what I've heard from other individuals has said that it takes people at least 10, 15 years. And I think some prior conversation we had, you said some people that never even learn in their musical careers. So yeah. And that was, again, I have to thank John Tovar because he introduced us to Eric Cager, who runs the Cutting Edge Music Conference out in New Orleans. And I've been going out to that for quite many years and performing out there with John Tovar. We go out there with him. But then eventually, the doc came out with us and she met a lady by the very accomplished, by the name of Michelle Maslin, who her husband is also extremely accomplished. And I guess her and Gloria hit it off, and she just put Gloria on the right path. And she just absorbed all that information. And now we're trying to work in the world of synchronization. That's what she. At the same time, huh?
Well, I was going to say, Cutting Edge Music Festival. That's the first place that you and I met.
Exactly. I should have made that point. Sorry, Danny. It's just a lot. It's just. I'm trying to remember all the, poignant points.
Well, and that's one okay. But you answered a question that I actually was going to have, because it was like, how did you first, find out about Cutting Edge?
It was through John Tovar.
Yeah.
Who introduced me to Eric and took us out there. And
the only time I met Tovar was at Cutting Edge that first year.
Yeah.
I do have to tell you, he did leave quite an impression.
Oh, let me tell you something. He left an impression, good or bad. He was very opinionated. And for people who don't know, John Tovar was Marilyn Manson's manager.
And obviously I heard the stories.
Yeah, Marilyn Manson, the Mavericks, which are actually from Miami. What's his name? The singer. He's actually Cuban American, like myself, but he's in country. Raul Malo, I think is his name. Yeah. He lives in Nashville now. He was in contact with Tovar. Who else? Nuclear Valdez. So Tovar had a pretty good pedigree going on. I'll always be very grateful that he thought that we were worthy of managing at the time, and that he really resonated with my material, with the songs. He really was we ended up always being close friends, but also he was a fan, and he really wanted to see the best for us. But unfortunately,
I actually was looking forward to seeing him again.
Yeah.
Because
I know
I met him in that last year, that he was alive. He'd say, "Mr. Jones, how are you today, sir?" And I knew he was. I think he was actually going to be speaking again, and that year because he passed away not too long before.
It was May of last year. Yeah,
and its Cutting Edge was in August.
It's always in August, usually in August. And
I didn't, like I said, I didn't know him very well at all, but actually I did like him.
Hey, man, I got stories, but we don't have enough time. Maybe some other. If you bring me back on, I can give you some of the JT John Tovar stories, and they're entertaining and they're all true. I mean, as a matter of fact, You know how it goes. Who was it? Was it Mr. Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain? I believe this was his quote. I believe it was in where truth is stranger than fiction.
Yep.
Well, that applies a lot.
How did we first meet there? I mean, who introduced us, or did anyone introduce us?
Yeah, well, yes. Actually, how we met, we had, I guess, we all had arrived at around the same time. I guess to New Orleans, and I guess it was kind of early evening at the Intercontinental, and they have that phenomenal restaurant. You know, the food in New Orleans. Oh man, that's probably one of the best places on the planet for cuisine.
Amen.
It was, well, I forgot the name of the restaurant. Toussaint. I forgot that
I
French
don't
name.
remember either.
Well, luckily, we were invited by Barry Coughing, the great Mr. Barry Coughing. You know, Mr. Springboard. You know,
No, I am not a wallflower.
yeah. Also, another very accomplished musician himself, and
Yeah.
I guess he also has the was it with his sinking. I'm trying to remember
Music
now.
supervisor. That's his
Music
company.
supervisors, yes, yes. So it was very nice of Barry, along with Michelle Maslin, I guess to sit at the table with you guys. Well, it was, of course, you, and I think it was someone else that was with us.
Could have been Ron.
It might have been. It might have been Ron Fontenot. Yes, yes,
the photographer.
yeah, no, not only photographer, but the minister of style.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just not photographer. This guy's just a artistic concept, and but yeah, we love Ron. So yeah, we had dinner, and I guess we were invited, and that's, I guess, how we were formally introduced. And I guess little by little, I guess we're all having conversations, and we started talking, and that's kind of how, you know, it led up to this.
Yeah. Well, I remember that dinner that you're talking about. I didn't remember exactly, when we met, because, when you're at these conferences, you run into each other, all the time,
Yeah.
because it was, especially at that one, because we were all in the same hotel.
Yes.
Most of the events, were happening there. So we, kept running into each other, and, we just kept talking. And then it was almost, a year and a half later before we actually said, okay, let's make a record together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard you guys play a couple of times, and one of the songs that was that really caught my attention, as well as a lot of attention, was your rendition, your arrangement of "Crazy." The Willie Nelson song that Patsy Cline had this
Yes.
huge hit on. You guys have a very, very different take stylistically.
Well, if you have the name 100-meter scream, you would expect that something's going to transform to, somewhat. Maybe it's like taking that song and turns into a lichen or a werewolf. But I guess as a musical analogy. But I think we did a decent job. But you know who we give credit to taking that song over the top? No, that's okay. Don't be so humble.
Well, thank you. What just so that people will know, what we ended up doing was like, okay, let's cut two songs.
Yes.
And by the way, this conversation went on for months.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And then when we decided to do it, there was still, pre-production that went on by Zoom calls and telephone.
Which I'm glad you're a big believer in pre-production.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
and you and Gloria came down, because I guess it's up for you.
Yeah.
To Houston, and we went to the studio there, and we spent I don't know, a day or two. How much time did we?
I believe we were all there.
Or was it?
I think for a few. It was like 3 days, maybe 3 days. I think
I don't
Um,
remember. I remember we were battling a hurricane because we had the time scheduled, and then
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You guys had that hurricane. We had to reschedule like a few different times. Yeah, I remember that.
scheduling was, a bit of an issue. But then, but we came in, and uh, I pretty much had and I, because of our working together, uh, felt like, okay, I know where we're going with this.
Yeah,
But I also thought, because we didn't, just due to a number of things, we didn't bring your whole band up here. So
yeah,
you and I played drums on it, and used we hired a couple of guys from here. One bass
yeah,
that I've worked with many sessions with, through the years, and this guitar player. And the couple of questions that I had is like, I want to hear this all put together, and of course we had you there, singing. And so I made some suggestions, as we kind of all did. You know, I mean, this. Uh, when we have the group together, it's like, okay, this is where we're going with it. But anybody who has a thought, a suggestion, let's hear it,
yeah.
because now's the time, for that, to happen. And
Well, yeah,
a few
yeah,
little changes in that, and but I mean, but I'll tell you, I mean, I did things, and yes, and I appreciate your comments, but you set the tone for that with just the concept of how to do the song.
well, I appreciate that, Danny. I think the first arrangement that I had was good, but again, thanks to pre-production, which I can't vouch for artists to always work hard on before any recording. You want to do as much pre-production as you can. It's like doing your homework. Um, that's where the war was won. To use that analogy, it was in the pre-production, because when I sent you the original arrangement, it was good, but then you did a couple of little production wizardry, kind of like the School of Hogwarts, uh, kind of.
Slicing and dicing.
Yeah, and you did that arrangement that we ended up with, the final arrangement, which, again, I'm not saying this because this is the podcast or trying to shine all this glory on you, just if it's not warranted. It's definitely warranted, because in the pre-production, you took the original arrangement that I had, which was pretty good, and that's what caught your ear and some other people. But you took it, and like as I said previously, it was just production wizardry, like wizard. I try to use a Harry Potter analogy, wizardly kind of maneuvering that you did with, how you kind of rearranged it with like already previously recorded versions of it, and it just I think it couldn't have been done any better. And you can see, at least with the interaction we've had with people who've heard it, we've gotten a very, very good and strong response to it. And yeah, that was a great job that you did with the final arrangement. And that's, to me, was just, just sealed the deal.
Well, I enjoyed that, those sessions, doing that, because of course we did two songs. Another song was the song that you wrote, and I don't know, I felt really good about it. I thought it was fun. It's work, obviously.
Oh yeah.
You're not coming in there just messing around. And
No, it's you enjoy it more when you do a lot of the legwork. You know,
yeah,
um,
because you're prepared.
you do a lot of legwork, and the more prepared you are, the better, because things are going to change already on the fly, no matter how prepared you are. But the more you know the material, the more confidence you'll have, the more you can kind of switch gears on a dime if you need to, or make it much easier. And just like we did with the other song, which was an original, Just Another Face, was, that also turned out to be fantastic. And yeah, and we just had a great experience there at at the studio. That was, I mean, it was a great experience being in Houston, recording there with you guys. And look, I'll be honest. I had fun. I enjoyed the whole process. Annie, I mean, we've talked this in the past. You and I have talked about this. You know, any capacity when you're doing music, whether you're writing by yourself in the room, performing, practicing, but especially being at the studio, and everyone was so nice. Everybody was just fantastic. Having Ron Fonten out there taking the pictures. He brought his grandson Wyatt, super great kid. Mikulka, the owner, really cool guy. The engineers. The
Lucky Run Studio in Houston.
Yeah, Lucky Run Studios. But Robbie Parrish, that in itself was a treat to be in the presence of Mr. Parrish. I mean, that guy. I mean, the second you walk in, that guy is instantaneous rock star. I mean, just his look. Him and Ron puts the rest of 100 Meter Scream to shame in our look department.
To most of us, actually, not just you guys. You know, those two. Well, you know, Robbie had I had asked him to be in on another couple of sessions that I had done, which he did come, and I feel that he just kind of adds to it.
Well, I told you, I saw how he was when we were in the control room, and he was talking to the young engineer, really nice guy, a talented kid too, and he was Rod was telling him, nope, hi-hat up, nope, do that, nope, that's not. I mean, he was like, I was like, whoa. He was really direct with the engineer, but Robbie was just like, he was just sitting there like Captain Kirk, like not moving, just lasered in on that. But you should probably mention for others. I mean, I know the credentials of Mr. Robbie Parrish.
I don't even know where to start with him but for those people who are listening to this who are not familiar with him, Robbie Parrish is he's a drummer among other things. And he sort of retired at this point, but he is, I'm not going to call him a drum tech because he's not, but he hears sounds and colors.
Oh, that's another name. Synchronesia. There's a name for that. It starts with an S, synchrony.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
At least offhand. But, he had actually been talking to me for a long time saying, hey, can I come into a session? And he and Ron are big buddies. And at some of these music conferences, Ron and I both attend that. We've had lots of conversations, and Robbie had come up in it several times. And so I said, yeah, let's come down. So even though, because in those sessions, your particular project, in addition to playing drums, I'm the producer on it. And just having Robbie come in, and he would just kind of, while we're rehearsing the songs, without playing drums, and we're just, pardon me, going into what, our little campfire as we're going over the arrangement, he hears what's going on, and he's fine tuning the tuning of the drums, and it means that that's something that actually I don't have to do. I mean, I've managed to survive all of my life except for this year, tuning my own drums and survived. But at the same time, he's great at doing that, and he loves coming out. He loves being involved, and I just like him in the room. I mean, again, most sessions I've done in my life, he was not there, but I enjoy him being there because he just adds a nice little thing. He's very quiet. I go over to him every once in a while and say, what do you think? Because I want his thoughts into it. He's worked on a lot of records. He's worked with a lot of.
Well, when you're talking about the Rolling Stones and the late great the drummer for the Stones,
Charlie Watts,
the great Charlie Watts, also at Pink Floyd. It was in London not too long ago at the.
Edgar Winter. He played drums for Chuck Berry when he was 10 years old.
Wow. Well, prodigy. Yeah.
So
when I saw him sitting there and I knew about him, I was like just sitting there like, oh my God. And you know what? He couldn't have been any nicer, just grounded, humble. And if you an awesome guy.
I mentioned him to you ahead of time to make sure that it was okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
You
but
know, you know, when it comes to myself, Danny, and the rest of the 100-meter scream guys, and with the doc, we, you know, we just appreciate everyone that's there for us and tries to help. And we're not like maybe some other artists that no, they need like, you know, just complete privacy what they're doing. No, I mean, listen, either know what you're doing or you don't, or you just, you know, it's like sometimes I prefer people there because it makes it a little bit at least more, puts you up more up for the task, you know. You got to deliver.
he does.
So,
Yeah.
and I have no issue with people who may like friends that want to come and hang out with us and make it into a, you know, into an event that everybody kind of has fun in, you know. And we all had, and look, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to kind of go into what may be the last part of what we talk about,
Okay.
and that is Springboard Memphis.
Yes.
So we were both there. Your band was there. The whole band was there for this, and
Yes.
you attended and performed. And I got to tell you, man, you knocked it out of the park. You
Well,
know, your performance at the Rum Boogie was really really really
well,
well done.
we appreciate that. I guess we're our own hardest critics, but I think we did fairly well. Yeah, I would say.
Well, not just my opinion. You know, I talk to other people, and other people will talk to me a little differently about you than they will talk to you.
Ah,
But
well, it's good to know.
it was nothing negative. I mean, zero. It was all
Well,
really positive, and
then,
even to the point of it was like, wow, you know, because some of the people had heard you before, and it's like, man, you know, they really sounded good.
yeah,
So that's great. So I know as of the time of this, you know, meeting, interview, whatever we want to call this, you haven't released this new single yet, and I know we're talking about possibly having another song, you know, for an EP, you know.
yeah.
But I want to do this again when we have a more update about, you know, the release of the next project.
Okay.
But do you have any questions or anything else you want to comment on?
No, just that, you know, you know, when you love what you do, you know, it's worthwhile, you know, it's, you know, and you try to enjoy the journey as much as possible. You had asked me, I guess, when we first met a while back, and they interested where I said, well, where do you want to, where do you see yourself going? I mean, where do you want to take this to? Talk about labels or whatever. I just said, hey, we want to take it as far as we can, you know, wherever that may be. And that's, and again, like I told you, I just love the process, you know, whether I'm just hanging out with the guys rehearsing, being at Lucky Run Studios, or you gotta love what you do. And it's in music, in the music business, you ain't coasting. It's gonna be kind of a roller coaster, and you just have to have the tenacity. So, but yeah, no, look, I'm looking forward to doing another one, another interview with you, Danny, and yeah, it's always great talking to you, man.
Same here. You know, the EntreMusician, the entrepreneurial musician, which certainly Ralph Miguel is. So am I. So this is Danny Jones and signing out. And Ralph, thanks again, man. Appreciate you.
Take care. Hey, man. Same here, Danny. All right. Take care, buddy. Bye.